This is Chapter 2, Organizational Demands and Environmental Influences. In this chapter, we'll talk about company strategy, company characteristics, organizational culture, employee concerns, and how they affect HR activities. We'll also discuss labor force trends, technology, managing employees in a global context, and how ethics and social responsibility affect managerial decisions. This chapter focuses on how environmental influences and organizational demands affect primary HR activities. When we think about what affects organizational demands, there are four things the book highlights. First, there's the organization's strategy, then there's the organization's characteristics, then there's a culture of the organization, and finally we can think about employee concerns. In terms of strategy, remember when we think about business strategy, the strategy represents the integrated and coordinated commitments and actions that are intended to achieve a stated business goal. Another way to think about that is that strategy answers the questions, what is our business, who is our customer, what is the value to the customer, and what should or can our business be. When we think about strategy, we can think about what is it the organization is attempting to achieve. For example, our book discusses two corporate strategies that an organization may engage in. One is a cost leadership strategy, in which the organization attempts to provide a service at the cheapest cost. Another is a differentiation strategy, in which an organization attempts to provide something unique to the customers. Depending on the organization, if an organization is very focused on cost leadership and reducing costs, they may engage in HR activities that are designed to reduce the cost of employees, reduce the cost of benefits, and keep the workplace as efficient as possible. Or an organization that's more focused on differentiation, on the other hand, may focus on activities that lead employees to be more satisfied or more diversely skilled, and may have hiring practices to promote hiring people who bring differentiation to the workplace. So again, the type of strategy the organization uses may affect the kind of HR practices the organization engages in. As we think about business strategy, we'll talk about how that affects the primary HR activities. Second thing to consider in terms of demands on the organization are the company's characteristics. How large is the company? And relatedly, how many resources are available to HR? If it's a small company, there may not be very many resources available. Whoever is working as a human resource manager may have a variety of tasks and activities they have to perform, whereas a larger company may have a lot of people who work in HR doing a lot of different activities and may have many resources to devote to those activities. We can also think about the company's life cycle and stage. Well, where is the organization currently? Is it a new organization, or is it an organization that's been around a long time? Are there policies in place, or do those policies need to be designed? Of course, we can also think about the company's success. Is it successful and needs to maintain its success, or is it not successful currently and needs to modify its strategies to be more successful? The organization's life cycle usually follows a path of starting as a startup, then experiencing, hopefully, growth, then developing into maturity, and then eventually declining or transitioning into another organization. Think about from organizations that are in the startup section would be organizations that don't have policies in place, for in which someone in HR may have a lot of leeway to design those kinds of policies or procedures. Whereas a more mature organization would probably have policies in place that the HR representative would be tasked with maintaining or improving. We'll also talk about company culture. When we think about the company culture, think about how organizations have shared values, assumptions, and norms that shape the socialization activities, the language people use, the symbols they use, and the ceremonies they use. Again, when you think about company culture, think about two organizations that may have the exact same purpose, the exact same goals, but may be very different places to work. Universities, for example, have very different cultures as well. The culture at St. Mary's is very different than the culture of Texas A&M or UT Austin or all those different places. Even though they're all universities, they have a very different culture. They have different symbols that you see around campus. They may have different values, different norms of behavior, and ways people are expected to act can be very different. And companies can have those kinds of cultural values, norms, and assumptions as well. Finally, we can think about the employee concerns. For your particular organization, what are the concerns of the people who work there? Again, are they single parents? Are they dual careers? What are the topics that they're concerned about? And the concerns of the employees will usually be things that the HR manager will be tasked to address. Relatedly, we can think about do the individuals who work there feel that the organization is just or demonstrates procedural justice? When we think about procedural justice, we'll think about is the organization applying their procedures in a fair way to all individuals? Individuals tend to think that they work at a place that's fair, again, treats everyone equally, applies their procedures fairly across different employees. If they see consistency in how the policies are enforced across employees, if they feel like the managers engage in bias suppression, if they feel like the decisions are accurate, if they're correctable, if managers feel like are willing to be corrected, if they feel represented, and if they feel like the organization's ethical. If we have those foundations in place, individuals usually feel that they work at a place that is fair in the policies and how they're applied. And when we think about beyond organizational demands, also just environmental influences too. We can talk about how environmental influences affect HR. When we talk about environmental influences, we'll focus on labor force trends, technology, globalization, and ethics and social responsibility. There are many labor force trends that organizations need to consider. There's increasing diversity in terms of race, gender, and age. We anticipate women will grow to be a larger portion of the workforce going forward. We anticipate greater representation for Hispanics and Asians and other minority groups. Probably most dramatically, we expect a dramatic change in terms of the age diversity we see in the workforce. The percentage of individuals in the workforce who are 55 or older is growing dramatically. And whereas the workforce used to be fairly uniform in terms of the age distribution, we're going to see a lot more diversity in terms of age as 18-year-olds enter the workforce and people 55 and 65 remain in the workforce for longer periods of time. Beyond that, we also see occupational trends in terms of the kinds of jobs, the kind of workspace individuals are looking for. Our book provides several graphs and distributions to demonstrate the diversity we see in workforce. And here you can see the greater representation in the workforce of people aged 65 to 75 and then 75 and older. Again, there are smaller percentages in terms of the majority of the workforce who's between 25 and 54, but their percentage is increasing, and we anticipate people staying in the workforce longer for a variety of reasons.